Hey everybody, Jane here, and today we are doing a mid-month wrap-up. I cannot remember the last time I had a reading month good enough to warrant a mid-month wrap-up, but I've already read 10 books this month, which is pretty awesome. And I am just concerned that if I don't do a mid-month wrap-up, it's going to be a hot mess at the end of the month. So, we're going to talk about all the books I have read so far in the month of December.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft spoken.
Alright guys, so I think the way we're going to do this is we are going to do from least favorite to most favorite. And I'm actually going to start by talking about a book that I really enjoyed, but that I'm not going to rate because of a friend being in that book. So that book is Christmas Cocoa Murder. So this has actually 3 different mysteries in it. And I enjoyed it. I realized this month that shorter works kind of sometimes don't work for me as well as longer works, and I do think that these each being a novella was a little bit tricky for me to appreciate as much as I could appreciate a full-length novel. The first book was Christmas Cocoa Murder by Carleen O'Connor. In this, we have a lady who is about to join what is, I think, the equivalent of the Irish police force, and she is at a winter carnival, Christmas carnival, and Santa Claus gets found dead in a dunk tank of hot cocoa. I had some issues with this story. My biggest issue, I think, was just that it is clear that it happens in a, like, these characters are from a different line of books, and there's not enough backstory into the characters, but the character stuff was important enough that I really struggled with the first book here, because I'd never read the series that these characters came from, and yet there's like a romance going on, and it seems like she also has custody of her siblings, and I'm not sure what was happening with that. She is about to join the police force, I think. Also, they live in Ireland, so things are a little different. I did part of this on audiobook, like I did half audio, half eye reading, and the audiobook I think was really hard for me because the narrator put on like a really strong accent for the characters, which if you are familiar with, the world and everything, probably worked really well for immersion. I struggled with it. I did not enjoy the narration for this, and that's part of the reason that I ended up going back to iReading for part of this. The other issue I had is that our detective lady, she just made some really stupid choices, especially by the end of the book. And like, I get why she made them, but she really put herself in danger, and especially with taking care of small children, that kind of made me mad. So just a lot of things in the first story didn't really work for me. I gave that story a 3. The second story was Christmas Cocoa and a Corpse. So the main character owns a restaurant, and she is making these hot cocoa packets to send home with customers. And there is a guy who is watching her boyfriend's puppy, and the guy slips on the ice and falls and hits his head and passes away. And there's a whole investigation of, was there secondary causes to his falling, like maybe her cocoa, or what exactly happened. This book did a lot better than the first book at, like, I didn't need to know a lot about the main story of characters and stuff. I just got in there, and it wasn't as much like you needed to know what was going on. They introduced you, but it wasn't It wasn't super character driven, it was very mystery driven. However, I kind of felt frustrated with the mystery itself, particularly like how the murder actually took place, what happened, and everything like that. The person's motive made sense, but just other things, it bothered me. It didn't work for me. So I gave that story a 3 also. The last story is Death by Hot Cocoa, and this is the one I'm not rating because I have a friend who was the one who wrote that. I have read other books in his series, and so because I know him and because I also have read other books, I didn't think I could rate it fairly. I will tell you it was my favorite out of these 3 stories. So you have his character who is a bookstore cafe owner, but in this doesn't really matter for the story. He's another one. This author did a great job of not making it super important for you to have had read their books to enjoy the mystery. So his character is in a escape room. They've gone to this escape room for Christmas, like a Christmas escape theme room, and the person who runs the escape room is murdered. And his character has to figure out who done it. It's kind of a closed, locked room mystery. I really had a good time with that one. Of the 3, it was my favorite. But as I said, I'm not rating this book, so I am doing this one first, and then we'll go from like my least favorite to my most favorite. But I enjoyed this. Worth reading. I think especially if you have already read the like main stories, like series that these books are based on, you might have a really good time as like little Christmas holiday themed novellas. Because I hadn't, I really felt like I missed out on the first one. The second one was fine. The mystery itself I didn't love. And the third one I had a good time with. The escape room was fun. All right, so my least favorite book so far this month was a book I read as an ebook called Bundle of Trouble. This is a mystery, and you have a woman who is very, very pregnant, and they get a call that her brother-in-law has possibly been found dead. There is a body, and his bags were found nearby, but they couldn't identify the body right away, so they're not 100% sure it's her brother-in-law. And so she ends up having the baby and then investigating to find out, was this her brother-in-law? What happened? All the things. I ended up doing a review on that if you want to watch that. It's not a well-lit review, but it was a very ranty review because this book made me so mad. So I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5. For those who don't really know me, I guess I would tell you that I don't usually rate books below a 3. So a 3 is a book that met expectations of, this is a readable book, this is appropriate for the genre, it doesn't have super problematic content, but maybe I didn't personally enjoy it. And so I feel like that's true with this book. I feel like if you like mysteries, you may enjoy it. It was a mystery. The characters were characters. Everything more or less made sense. My biggest issue was Kate, who's the main detective in the book. I liked her okay. I hated her husband, and the humor didn't work for me. Like, I saw that the author was trying to be funny, but the humor was not coming for me at all. I also didn't like the resolution of the mystery. The mystery itself was interesting, but then the resolution kind of did a thing like the person doesn't have a motive that I thought was a reasonable motive for what happened. So I ended up really feeling frustrated with that book. And like I said, I gave it a 3-star. It wasn't for me, and I won't be continuing in that series, but it is a mystery that makes sense. Like, it does what I would expect a mystery to do. The next book, which is the one that I liked slightly more than that one, but not a whole lot, was The Mistletoe Murder. This is a collection of short stories. I think there's 4 little short story murders. I think my biggest issue with this book is just that you really don't have the opportunity to solve the mysteries in any meaningful way yourself. It's kind of, here's a murder, here's who did it, here we go. So I just think these stories all suffered from just being very short, very quick, and I didn't really care. I'm not a huge short story person, so that probably was part of the reason I did not love this. Again, your mileage could vary. If you love short stories, these were kind of interesting setups. I just didn't personally find them that they worked for me very well. All right, so the next book was on my 5-star predictions. Clearly, it was not a 5-star, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it this early in the video. And that book was Red Clocks. This takes place in a world where fetuses have rights. They are considered people, and that has created a lot of issues for women's healthcare and also for fertility treatments and also for like adoption. And this book follows some women dealing with things in that world. And that, I love that idea of that setup. Like, I love The Handmaid's Tale. I love books about women's rights. And I think all of that is super relevant in the current day. For me, this book was way too literary, and I didn't find it super accessible to me as a reader. We have 2 of the women who we're following who I didn't really understand why their stories were in this book. I wasn't really sure what the author was trying to tell us. The other 3, there's like a total of 5 kind of stories happening. And I think I'm going to end up doing a whole video on this because I just have a lot to say about it. But I found it very literary and I didn't really get it. And so I thought what it was saying was important. I just didn't actually have a very good time hearing what it was saying. The next book was Fake Dates and Mooncakes. In this, we have 2 guys. I think it's Dylan and Theo. Theo is very, very wealthy. His mother was Chinese. She's passed away. And his father is American. So he's like racially mixed. And then we have Dylan, who's Chinese. And they meet when Dylan's aunt owns this like Chinese restaurant. And Dylan is delivering food one day and he meets Theo, and then Theo like decides he likes him, and his aunt's restaurant is having problems, so Theo kind of gives him money for setting up his aunt's store to help them get through a little bit of the hard time they're having in exchange for going on a fake date to his cousin's wedding. This is another one that I gave a 3-star. I just had some issues. Theo and the way his wealth was handled, because he's the rich kid, it just kind of didn't work for me. It was so extravagant, and so I didn't like the way it was done. That this is also YA, so maybe, I mean, I'm obviously not the audience for this, but I thought I'd still enjoy it. But, you know, it's not even Theo's money, and he's just like, oh, here, solve all these problems with, like, extravagant expenditures. We don't get Theo's point of view, so I didn't ever really understand, what Theo thought of Dylan, or, like, where he was going, or where his commitment level is. I mean, like, especially in the beginning. I didn't understand from their initial exchange, like, where the sparks were. We do get Theo telling us pretty early on that he wants to get more in touch with his heritage after his mother passed. You know, he hasn't really connected with the Chinese side of his heritage. So, I guess, maybe that's why he decides he likes Theo, or Dylan, but yeah, it was cute, but a lot of things just didn't really work for me. All right, so we're moving out of the 3-star territory now into the 4 stars. So the first 4-star I have is a graphic novel, Eve. And this is actually volume 2. So I guess the best way I can explain this is Eve is a clone that was created to try to help solve some problems. Like, humanity and the earth is a hot mess. There's a plague happening, there's pollution happening, there's all kinds of bad stuff. And the scientists who created her has moved to a space station on the moon. And she is supposed to be one of these clones that was made to try to fix the problems that are happening. It's kind of a weird plot, and I will tell you, book 1 worked really well for me. This one I felt was a little more convoluted. I didn't like it as much. It was kind of that border between a 3 and a 4. Like, it was so pretty, and I liked it enough that I could call it a 4 because I thought it was an above average graphic novel for sure. But I didn't like this one as much as I liked the first one. I don't know if I'll continue in the series. I probably will, but my library doesn't have the next volume. I'm not sure if the next volume's out yet. So, like, this is something that could very easily just fall off my radar and me stop caring about. But it was fine, but I liked the first one a lot better. The next book, which is another 4-star, is Check Please. This is another graphic novel. In this, we have this guy who loves to bake, and he is on the hockey team for his college, and he is also interested in boys. And this was just cute. It was cute. It was sweet. There were things that I thought were a little bit excessively done. Like, there's a whole, like, tweets at the back, which I thought was kind of silly. I don't know why we did that. But this is enduring, and I do plan on reading the next book. It was fine. It was cute. The next book was also on my 3-star prediction, or a 5-star prediction list. It got a 4-star, so not a 5-star, but better than the 3 I gave the other one in this video. And that is The Undomestic Goddess by Sophie Kinsella. So this book, you have a girl who is a lawyer, Samantha, who is a lawyer at a high-powered firm, and she makes a mistake and basically, like, loses her crap and runs away. And she ends up at this house, and she's meaning to ask for directions, but the people there are like, "Oh, you're applying for our housekeeper job." And she's like, "Well, I need a place to stay. So if I tell them I'm applying for the housekeeper job, I can stay here tonight. And then, tomorrow I'll tell them I'm not really a housekeeper. I know nothing about housekeeping." And then they hire her, she stays, and she learns how to housekeep. And she falls in love with the cute gardener. And the book ensues. This book was a good time if you don't think very hard. This is just definitely that book where it's like, okay, this is meant to be funny and kind of humorous. So a lot of it just makes no sense at all, or is kind of like, yeah, I guess, maybe, sort of. But yeah, this isn't any book that you can apply a whole lot of logic to. I did have a good time. I thought there was a lot of funny things. I thought the humor hit pretty well. I was really angry at the end, though. The end itself I wasn't necessarily angry with, but it needed an epilogue. It ends without the resolution that my heart desired. We get kind of a real vague-ish resolution, and I wanted more. I needed an epilogue. I needed another chapter. I needed something. So this book was a good time, but it really fell a little short of what I wanted it to be. All right. The next book is also a 4-star, and it is another manga, and it is Blood on the Tracks. So this is kind of hard to explain, and it's an interesting start to a series. This series is either going to go really, really good or really, really bad. I don't know yet. But this boy, I can't remember his name, has been super sheltered his whole life. And then he's on a camping trip, and a tragedy happens. And some complexity to the tragedy. So we'll have to see in the next book what's happening and what's going on. But it really caught my attention. It was really interesting, and I was like, "Oh, I want to find out what's going on here." So I definitely was excited to read that, and we'll be continuing the series. All right, now we are at the 1 5-star that I've had so far this month. And it was a low 5. I'll be really honest. I liked it too much to call it a 4. It was a low 5. But I really did have a good time, and I can't wait to continue the series. It is another manga. It is Ascendance of a Bookworm. I'll Do Anything to Become a Librarian, Part 1, Volume 2. I will say I'm not entirely sure how to figure out sometimes when I'm looking at all of the volumes of this particular series, like what's what. But I think I've ordered the next book from the library. This is about a girl who is a big reader, and she dies, and she's reincarnated is probably not the right word, but she gets zapped into the body of this child in another world. This child is very sickly, and her family is very poor, but she is determined to have books. And so this is kind of her quest for books. I liked the first volume, but I like this one a lot better. So the first volume I gave a 4, and then this one I gave a 5, because the first volume I found her kind of whiny, and in this I didn't find her whiny. I thought she was a lot of fun, and I really understood where she was coming from and felt bad for her. So this was really good, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. So that is all of the books that I've read so far in the month of December. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and how you felt about them. Also, what was your best read this month and so far? And what was your worst read this month so far? This has been Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.